Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Chris, just joking, with me here today. Chris gets all the great games, by the way. He was on with us for the Chiefs game. It's the primetime game. So, Mr. Primetime Chris with the big, crazy wins. Next time we have a big game, Chris, I want you to come on. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, man, that's fine with me. That's what they used to call me in high school. They used to call me primetime, so that's good. It's fitting.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, it is carried over to past your post-high school life, which is wonderful. Always enjoyed Chris. Great family man, great football man. Check out his podcast. The link will be below, the Deep Cover Pod. He works with Mike. He works with Carrie. Also, two excellent football analysts. So it's just a great show, and I'm really pleased to have Chris. So thank you so much, Chris, for coming on.
Yeah, man, anytime. The first time I came on, I told you, anytime you want me on, I'll be here.
Perfect. So 31-25 in overtime. The Ravens with a furious comeback. What was your thought during the game before we get into the details? Tell me the emotional side of Chris within this game.
I was pretty cool during the game, and then I started getting heavily invested into it after the Lamar fumble. After the Lamar fumble, because it was like, all right, they're going to do this. They went down the field, and they just went down the field with ease. So I was like, all right, now this team is clicking. And then Lamar fumbled at the 1, and I'm like, damn it, man. And then that's when I started really like, come on, guys, like let's get it together, And the Indy comes back and they scored a touchdown, and I don't know why, but I tweeted it out too. I was like, they're only down 16. Like, it doesn't look good right now, but the way that these guys have played throughout the season, it just fits their MO that they're gonna come back. And I tweeted that out before they even made the comeback. And I'm like, I have faith in this team because they're battle tested, man. And they showed it yet again last night.
They did. And, we got Lamar Jackson on this Ravens team. So with him, all things are possible. Sounds cheesy, but, I've been ahead of this curve for a while, Chris. I've taken a lot of criticism, even from Ravens fans. Both of us watch that tape really closely, and you see Lamar make high-level throws throughout his rookie year when, he came in half the season. We was working with like 10, 15 plays. But 2019, guys weren't running wide open, Chris. And Lamar was reading the field, manipulating the safeties with his eyes, keeping his eyes in the right spot, and then going through his progressions. So I saw all the positive signs early. It's one of those things that I can brag on because I'm not right on everything. I'm wrong quite a bit. But we are seeing what people call the evolution of Lamar Jackson. I almost don't even want to hear that. Like, he's always been it. It's more of the opportunity and the weapons around Lamar Jackson and the game situations with not having a dominant running game. Passing yards aren't important. They are not the end-all, be-all. But we've seen these in a few games, he needed every passing yard he could get.
Yeah, that's for sure. And as far as the way he was, as far as the evaluation process was coming out of Louisville, it was all there. Like, you saw an advanced passer. You saw a guy who was nuanced at the position, who knew how to navigate in the pocket, not just run. And it was so lazy for people to just mark him as a runner. It's like, no, this dude does high level stuff as a quarterback. Now, obviously, he's not a finished product coming out of Louisville, and there are some growing pains and, things he has to adjust to. But this is something that, Mike and Carrie and I, we've been talking about on the Deep Cover Pod, is we're seeing him take that next step, as like we saw with guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady, where they're not trying to make the, hero play all the time. If you're going to leave Devontae Freeman alone in the middle of the field, I'm just going to take what you give me. And we're going to take those easy yards. You're going to give Hollywood 15 yards, 10 yards. All right, I'm just going to dump it off to him and let him get those yak yards. And that's the evolution that we're seeing and the maturation process of him as a quarterback. So it's been beautiful to watch this season because, it leads to these fun games and you see all of these guys and women who talk poorly about him coming out and saying that he didn't have the skills to be a competent passer in the league. And we're seeing it on full display now.
Yeah, it's almost weird because it's like it took the rest of the team to kind of fall apart around him to force him to be this kind of player. So, it's all good. And they want to take credit away from Lamar when you have the all-time rushing record. And yeah, it was lazy. And I think some people, the first couple of times I saw him, Chris, I was the same way. It was like, I'd never seen a guy run, especially from a quarterback position, never seen where guys are just falling all over themselves, diving and not coming close. So you think as a rational person, well, if he's that good at running, Chris, he probably can't throw that well, or else he'd be like number one on everybody's board. So like it doesn't make sense how you can be that good of a quarterback and that good of a runner. We've never seen that. Michael Vick does not enter this conversation. No disrespect to Mike, but as far as a passer, Lamar is far and away better. Was in college as well. So we never saw it, and I think that drives a lot of narratives. Of course, you're going to have the racial elements and all kinds of other stuff, but just from a common sense point, the first few times I saw him, Chris, I'm like, well, okay, this guy's a scrambler, blah, blah, blah. But, man, after watching him for 4 years, I've been defending him vehemently against these people who just say, oh, it's just the system, and the only reason he gets these he's efficient as a passer is because of the run game. You can see that Lamar can handle it all himself. So I want to read the stats before you go, just for anybody who didn't know it or wanted to hear it again. 37 for 43, 442 yards, 4 touchdowns. By the way, he also ran 14 times for 62 yards. Key scrambles in there, Chris, getting first downs and keeping the chains moving. So 14 for 62 on the ground, a total of 504 yards. He set records for the highest completion percentage among passers with 40 or more attempts, or 400 yards passing. He was 95% of the total offense. So the running backs went 11 carries for 24 yards. Lamar had the other 504. So, Chris, what a game. Have you ever seen anything like this from a quarterback?
Man, and it's funny that his first half was so terrible, and he ended up putting up those insane numbers. And, he missed Hollywood on a touchdown pass where Hollywood was wide open. And then he threw one to Hollywood, too, where he just put it out in front of him. So it was looking like one of those days where, damn, Lamar might not have it today. And then in the second half, he, went into the phone booth, changed into his little Superman outfit, and came out, and, you guys know the rest.
It was crazy, man. It was crazy. I was trying to dig up the numbers, but yeah, he started 12 of 16, so it wasn't like he was terrible. But after that, he went 25 for 27. So he completed 25 out of his last 27 passes, and one of them was a deflective pass, and the other was a little off. Really, the Hollywood throw was the only poor throw. But yeah, you're right. He missed him, man. He was wide open the play before that. I think it was just the play before that. We have to talk about this Indianapolis game plan, though, because this is something that we're seeing. It's something the Ravens are going to have to adjust to. Can't rely on Lamar to play like this all the time and expect to go where they want to go. So Indy's game plan, to me, it broke into two things. I want to focus on the one. We called it on our preview show, Chris. We were saying, look, if Indianapolis is going to win, their advantage is their running backs over our linebackers. And sure enough, that's what they did. 20 carries for 118, so about 6 yards a carry. Your Ravens team gave up about 6 yards per carry. They also targeted the running back 7 times, targeted the tight end 7 times. So that was the main part of their game plan, was basically to pick on our linebackers and cover safeties.
Yeah, it's almost similar to what we saw with Detroit, the way they used DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. They wanted to get those guys in space, and they wanted to get the defense flowing and make the defense tackle, which is something that the Ravens have struggled with all season long. And that continued yesterday. We saw the terrible, terrible third down play on the opening series for the Colts, where Taylor takes it to the house, and it's like that. That just does not look like Raven football, and that cannot happen. There's no excuse for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that this team needs Desean Elliott back ASAP because it really looks like in that Chuck Clark missed the tackle on the play you're talking about, which is rare for Chuck. But it's like if Chuck isn't there, you really can't rely on anybody else. That's why part of the reason why he's having such a noticeable standout season, he's making plays that should be made by other people, and Chuck's IQ and everything is taken over. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on how the Ravens can adjust? Do we need to go out and get somebody at linebacker, Chris?
It's funny you say that because my partner Mike Crawford and I, we were actually talking trades today, and he brought that up. He brought up trading. He wants to see a veteran linebacker come in and sort of stabilize this group the way we saw in 2019 when they brought in L.J. Fort and Josh Bynes. Now they have Josh Bynes now, but he's a little long in the tooth, so this isn't 2019. So maybe bringing in a veteran presence who can stabilize the position and get these guys where they need to be, because it's a lot for young linebackers to take on a whole defense, especially with a veteran group like the Ravens have. So I'm not throwing in the towel on Patrick Queen. Like I know we see a lot of people getting on him, and he's a young guy, and we've been preaching patience as far as player development. We've seen it with Anthony Averett. We've seen it with Bradley Bozeman. And it's like this guy is in the 5th game of his 2nd season. Give patience, let's let him develop before we call him a bust. And that's not to say that he's been playing perfect, because of course not. But there are going to be growing pains when you draft a player who's that young and you put him in the middle of that defense, because it's a ton of responsibility.
So I'm more with Michael on this one, man. I have to be honest with you. Like, it's not. I mean, we have control of Patrick Queen's contract for another 2+ years, so it's not about throwing in the towel. But I really think we have something this year, where if we had LJ Fort, we could sit Queen down or put him in more advantageous opportunities, because he's just overwhelmed right here. So I'm kind of with Michael. I would like to see a move to bring somebody in to at least be in the right place at the right time. And my main concern long-term is that there's really nothing that Patrick's doing right now that we can build off of. Like it's every single part of his game. Now I did see him one time yesterday. I can't wait to get into the all 22 to see it, but physically take on a block and not try to give up ground and then get around the guy. Like we've seen him do, but mentality-wise, it was encouraging for me to see him blow up an offensive lineman as a linebacker. But Malik, one of my favorite players, isn't playing well. Queen's not playing well. Chris Board's about what he is at this point. Like, I'm really searching for that other linebacker that we can rely on, because we look pretty good everywhere else. Now, one player that's a transition, because their second part of their plan, Chris, was to attack Anthony Averett, who had by far his toughest game as a Raven this season. Anthony, 2 pass interference. The one play was so horrible that he interfered with Michael Pittman, but he still gave up a 40-some-yard touchdown. What I noticed on this, Chris, I want to get your thoughts, is that he was biting on the first move and not trusting his speed. When you get speed like Anthony Averett, you can be a little bit more patient, because you have that quickness and speed for Averett. It's not just, he's got the short area quickness and long speed. Bad game for Anthony Averett. What's your thoughts? Is this a concern level check in with you? How concerned are you?
On a scale of 1 to 5, I would probably say a 2, maybe. I just think it's a bad day at the office, like we saw with Hollywood in Detroit. We know Anthony Averett can play. I mean, the last time I was here, we brought up the play against Tyreek Hill, where he just basically ran the route for him, and it's like that just doesn't go away. This is, I'm going to chalk this up to a bad day at the office. Not excusing him, just like with Queen. I'm not excusing bad play, but it's like, all right, he had a bad day. Move on, and let him build off of it. I don't think he should have been benched. You stay with your guy, because I think you do more harm benching a guy like that than you do good, because then how's he going to be for the rest of the season? Is he going to be playing to not make a mistake? Because he's scared to lose his job. You have to think long term with these guys because it's not Madden. It's not like you just all right, you bench them and then that's it. No, these guys, they're humans. They all act different, so you never know how a guy's gonna handle being benched.
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be a big game. I agree with everything you said. First of all, my concern level is not. I've seen too much progression game to game to game. It was just a step back. Bad day at the office, like you said. I'm with that 100%. And then yes, they're not robots, Chris. Like you can't just take them out of Madden and put them back in. There's going to be another game this season where Averett gives up a couple of plays. Maybe he's the villain. I used to say goat, but now goat means great. So I don't even know what the. But yeah, he was it was his bad, man. It was his bad, and he's gonna have to come back, spring back, and make some plays for us to win a big game somewhere down the stretch. So yes, Anthony Averett, not concerned. I think teams are going to try to go at him, especially if Tavon's playing like he was last night. And of course, you got All Pro Marlowe on the other side. It's going to be on Averett to handle a high volume of targets his way, and I think he can handle that, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, Wink has the utmost trust in him, and if Wink has the utmost trust in him, I'm going to have the utmost trust in him too. And he's a guy who I felt for the last couple of years fans have just been really, really hard on. And it goes back to what we said about letting guys progress. You gotta let them make mistakes. You gotta let them learn on the fly. It's not always going to be perfect. These guys are not going to walk in and just dominate from day one. It's a progression, and what you want to see is small improvements, small improvements, small improvements. And I think we've seen that, and it's all culminating now in his last year going in before he goes into free agency. So I think he'll be fine.
Me too. I've seen the progression in his eyes and awareness, also his ability to challenge bigger receivers, his ability to ride them towards the sideline. There's a lot of technical stuff I can get into, but I have some older videos on my channel if anybody's interested of watching Anthony Averett versus Preston Wilson and Devontae Parker. He wasn't ready at that time, Chris. Like it was just a little bit outmatched by these bigger receivers and getting left in the dust. And he fell down on one play. He's got his ankles basically broke off. Now I see him with great timing in his routes, riding people towards the sideline, easy speed. So yes, all that, like you said, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. He's learned all that. It was just a bad day at the office. So speaking of bad day at the office, that pretty much sums up the first half for the Ravens. They punted on their first 4 possessions and then didn't punt again in the game. I think the only other time they didn't score was the LJ fumble on the goal line, like you said. The thing that bothered me, though, in the first half, those first 4 possessions, was we had 2, and it was either 3 or 4 yards to go on both of them. And Greg Roman dialed up Lamar Jackson, design runs, which kind of tells you about the state of the running game, first of all, that we don't trust our backs to get that. But also, what are you waiting for? Put the ball in Lamar's hands. So yeah, I didn't like that. I'm going to mention a couple other things just before you go about the first half. Ben Cleveland, Sammy Watkins were knocked out. Marlon Humphrey jumped off sides with the punter attempting a field goal and Nyheim Hines, the running back, holding, which basically gave Indianapolis another shot and gave them 3 points. Bradley Bozeman was struggling with DeForest Buckner and the big guys inside. And then Hollywood Brown, 0 catches in the first half. So, man, what about this first half, Chris?
It was strange. It was just a strange half. And, again, we're seeing the struggle with the running backs and trying to get into a good rhythm of, who can be a guy that they can trust. Because right now, like you said, it's clear they don't trust any of them, really, because the calls that we would see Roman do on third down, we're not seeing those because he does not have faith in the running backs that they currently have. Maybe that faith will grow with more practice and more time. But as of right now, it's a huge problem that needs to be addressed. And it kind of needs to be figured out. I think they need to settle down and really just give 1 or 2 guys the looks that they need during the game, because this carousel of Murray, Freeman, Bell, Tyson it's difficult for these running backs to get into a groove like that.
I'm with you actually. I'm changing my tune from even like a week ago where I'm like, look, just keep mixing and matching, try to find out who can do what well. But I mean, it can't get much worse from a running the ball standpoint than we've seen from the Ravens the last 2 weeks. And I think some of it, though, Chris, I do think some of it has to do with what the opponents are doing to us. I mean, these linebackers look like they're lining up 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. It looks like it's not just a crowded box. It's an even more pushed up to the line of scrimmage crowded box. Basically, it looks like they're playing 7 defensive linemen against us, just shooting the gaps. Hey, we're going to catch the running backs in the backfield. So the running backs haven't had much of a chance. But when they have had a chance, I know one of the things you mentioned is you're seeing Tyson feeling like he's running a little bit tight, like he's afraid to get put back in the doghouse.
Yeah, and that's the thing with players. It's like once the confidence is shot, we saw it with Perriman. Once that confidence is gone, everything the player can do well, it sort of leaves. It's like in Space Jam when they lose their powers, and confidence is so important. And the running back coach for the Patriots today, he put out a quote saying how Ramondre Stevenson was running timid, and he wasn't running as hard as they know he can run, and he said he saw during the game that it kind of switched in Ramondre Stevenson, and he started to carry the ball more confidently. And it's like, damn, that's what I want the Ravens to do with Tyson. It's like don't have him be inactive for the game, because then when he gets the ball, he doesn't look like Tyson Williams right now. He looks like a guy who's just holding on to the ball for dear life, and he's not confident to make any kind of move. The stuff that we saw during the preseason, granted, it's against third stringers, second stringers, but still, there was a movement skill that he had with him, and a certain flavor to his game that we don't see right now because he's so scared to get put in that doghouse.
So do you have any solutions? I'm guessing Tyson's going to be one of your guys, but how would you handle, let's say, Lamar takes his carries, but the running backs themselves get 20 carries. How would you split up if you could pick what guy and how many carries what would you suggest?
Yeah, I would definitely say Tyson is up there. I know Freeman had a good game yesterday, just getting those dump offs, but it's hard to see it with him, man, because he doesn't have any burst. He was reliable with his hands yesterday, but it's hard to see him having a huge impact or, maximizing the touches that he'll get in his offense. Murray's the same deal. It's I like him as an inside runner. He shows some good wiggle as far as getting those tough yards. So he has a valuable asset there. And then Le'Veon Bell, he's the question mark. I don't know what to think about Le'Veon Bell. I have not seen enough of him to firmly have an opinion on what he can and can't do. So it's a toss up there, but I'm part of the camp of maybe they should be in the market for making a trade for someone.
Okay. Yeah, I can go with anything because I got to tell you, Chris, I'm trying to, it's a knee-jerk reaction is what we have because there's nothing to really go on. Like, it's not like we have years and years. I mean, this is a week-to-week thing. So before I was like, all right, well, we got Murray. Definitely want him to be a part of it. But now I'm feeling like let's just use Murray in short yardage situations. Let's use Tyson on your first and second down situations. And then, hey, let's bring Le'Veon Bell back up into the game for these third down pass protection, maybe bring him in for some earlier downs and try to pass the ball to him. And then, I'm a Nate McCrary guy. I don't know if you heard me last week, but I just want to see that guy who can make somebody miss in space, Chris. Like Nate McCrary can juke, but he's also got 4.4 type speed to take one in the house. So, yeah, I don't know who I would deactivate, but I got to tell you, I think that I want to shrink Murray's role, increase Tyson's role, and then find out what we have in the third back. I don't have any real answers here, bud.
Yeah, and that, unfortunately, we're not privy to that because we don't get to watch practice. We don't see how these guys look when they're taking those reps at practice. So it's difficult because right now we're just guessing with Le'Veon. I mean, we saw him for a little bit in Denver, but that's not enough to really evaluate someone and see what they have left. So I do feel like he'll be activated during this game though, because I think that was his last practice squad. This will be his last practice squad call up.
Yeah, it was almost like they wanted to give the other guys a chance before they put Le'Veon on the roster for good. But who knows? Like we don't know. He might be, maybe. Then we heard that teams are calling us for a trade, and I'm thinking, well, if they want anybody but Tyson, I'm kind of like open to this. Like if we can get back some kind of tackle or like a linebacker who can at least be a run stuffer, I'm totally down for it. So the game in the second half, Chris, didn't start out any better. In fact, this is when a lot of fans started leaving the stadium because the Indianapolis got the ball, gave up a long touchdown, Anthony Averett. Ravens fumble on the goal line. Indianapolis come back, score another touchdown, and then the game kind of changed on Chuck Clark's interception on a 2-point conversion. They held the score. It was still 22-3 with 3:06 left in the third quarter. So 42 minutes have been played in this game, only 18 minutes to go, and the Ravens are down 22-3. This is when people started leaving the stadium. So Lamar has a new comeback. He has come back from a 19-point deficit in his career, which is hard to do. Like I kind of want to do some stat work to see how many like 19-point comebacks there have been. But yeah, were you just staying calm at this point? Were you doing the math in your head like I was, or were you flipping off the TV? Tell us about Chris during this time, man.
So what gave me confidence was what I said earlier, was that drive before the fumble. There was a huge third down play where I think they were on their 15, and Lamar hits Prochet on a beautiful play where Lamar recognizes the blitz coming, and he knows Prochet's the hot read coming up on a slant route, and he hit him, and it was like once he hit that pass, they kind of just got the ball rolling, and you saw the momentum shifting. But then, unfortunately, he had the fumble on the 1 yard line, and that might go back because he should have handed that ball off to Murray. But it goes back to, do these guys trust these running backs? Is Lamar just like, you know what, I trust myself more than I trust these strangers who are just coming into this building? So that goes back to the whole trust factor. But as we saw, they just started moving the ball, and you could feel the momentum shifting. Now, when the offense was on the field, I felt fine. When the defense was on the field, I was like just holding myself and just, clutching my seat because I didn't know what was going to happen with the way this defense was performing.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz was playing really well, well, and they were attacking us. They called a flea flicker.
Yeah.
They were up 13 in the fourth quarter and called a flea flicker. So Indianapolis didn't just like fall on this ball and go hide. They kept attacking us.
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz had a very good game. But yeah, I was kind of like you. Like it wasn't that I didn't have confidence in the offense. It was just that drive where Lamar fumbled on the goal line, it was like a 6-7 minute drive. So it was like a numbers thing at that time and a time thing. I'm like, man, we're the better team. We finally got it figured out. But yeah, I was looking at the score and I'm like, man, if our defense gives up one more touchdown, this is over. And really it would have been, because we only gave up one more field goal after that. Had to block a field goal, had to miss the field goal. The Colts could have put us away, but Lamar Jackson, once again, in this second half, what impressed me the most, I think, obviously there was a lot of things I could pick, but he went from scrambling and making things happen to holding in the pocket and making things happen to making on-time throws at to the first read when he was open, to going through several reads. Like, Chris, he was almost perfect in every aspect of the game. He didn't get caught up in playing street ball too much. He played street ball when he had to. Then he went through his progressions when he had to. Everything crumbling around them. And, Xavier Rhodes knocking himself out. By the way, launching, I'm going to see this again, but I saw the replay. Xavier Rhodes launched themselves into Andrews on that great catch where Mark Andrews held on. Launched himself, helmet to helmet, defenseless, like every rule you can think of. We didn't get the call on that, but Xavier Rhodes knocked himself out of the game, and we started picking on the cornerbacks after that.
Yeah, we saw that right away on the Hollywood touchdown, the long throw where I don't even remember the guy's name, the cornerback's name, where he was in first play, and they were like, all right, we're gonna hit this double move, and that's all she wrote as far as that play is concerned, because they went to work and they were picking on them the way they were picking on our linebackers. We were like, all right, we're gonna pick on your cornerbacks. You got second and third stringers there. All right, cool, we got you.
So the coin toss, I felt like actually meant something in this, because if we got the ball, I felt like we were definitely going to score unless we shot ourselves in the foot. And then if they got the ball, I really didn't have confidence in our defense to even hold them to a field goal. The defense, Calais Campbell played his butt off. Brandon Williams was good. I thought this was an off day for the edge rushers. Not as far as rushing the passer. We got some pressure, but some of their edge setting wasn't good. And I think that's part of the reason. Like I was like, I don't want to blame this all on Queen or Harrison every play. Let's see what really happened. And when I went back, it looked like Justin Houston, Dafio Way, and the guys were getting, everybody but McPhee basically was getting washed out a little too far on that edge. And of course, Indianapolis has great running backs. So we talked a lot about the running back situation. Andrews and Hollywood, though, my goodness, what games for those two, both of them making the tough plays when they had to.
Yeah, it was like watching them back at Oklahoma. That's what it felt like. And I love what we're seeing, because we've already seen it from Andrews, where he's one of those top 5 tight ends in the league. He's around there. But with Hollywood, there's been so much criticism because of DK, because of Terry McLaurin and all those guys that were in that draft. And it's like, damn, Hollywood was the first one taken. But it's what we're seeing now is Hollywood take that next step. And it's beautiful to watch, because he's a guy that was doubted so much. He was injured when the Ravens drafted him. He's a guy that Lamar wanted. And right now what we're seeing is all of that come to fruition, and him just be one of the best wide receivers so far in the 2021 season.
He is. And, I've always been a fan of his route running. I didn't think he got enough credit for that, but he can cut on a dime. You see some of these deep dig routes. He's not just a deep ball guy. He will absolutely slay you in the intermediate area, finding space between linebackers and safeties and just leaving the corner in the dust. But my one big problem with it, and I always just felt like, look, man, you're in your 40s, you're old school. Maybe you just don't understand. And then I said, well, Hollywood knows his body better than anybody. Well, Hollywood's playing with 2 screws in his foot. Maybe this has something to do with it. But earlier this year, I had just given up. I'm like, well, Hollywood, it's going to be impossible for you to be a number 1 receiver, Chris, if you're not fighting for extra yards. There was one game last year where we needed to keep the clock running. And instead of just diving at somebody's feet, he ran out of bounds. And that was my frustration point. It was boiling over with him. But he talked about this. Matter of fact, my guy Skeptic Goat, if you know Skeptic Goat from Twitter and YouTube, he said it too. He noticed too, Hollywood crediting Keith Williams to bring some of that mentality in him to, hey, man, you only live once. This is your legacy. Fight for extra yards when it's there. I mean, really, that was, other than his height, which he can't control, on the deep ball. That was my only knock in his game, is he's not using all this speed and quickness that we see in his routes to try to leave some guys in the dust. So, Chris, I'm super encouraged about the fight. The playoff Hollywood is here all the time now, man.
Yeah, there was a play on the sideline towards the end of the game where he makes a catch and he twists to his left, and the cornerback is running after him. He gives him a nice little stiff arm to the ground. So it's fun to watch him do those things and kind of take on some of that rugged persona that Keith Williams has brought into this wide receiving corps.
I like the rest of the receivers too. Like, even if Sammy is going to miss, a few weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it might be with this hamstring, we have Bateman coming back. He's got that mentality. Been really impressed. I'm a huge James Prochet guy. I'm so thankful that he finally got his chance. Not happy because I expected him to do it, but just thankful that he got his chance to have a role. And maybe this makes Bateman's injury a blessing, because you've gotten to see what Prochet and Duvernay have been able to bring to this offense. And now if Sammy's going to miss time, we have another couple of guys that we can rely on. What's your thoughts on Rashad Bateman, by the way, moving forward? How do you expect him to fit into this offense, both short-term and or long-term, however you want to say it?
So I think it's crazy how things work, like as far as injuries, because he's been gone this whole time. And Sammy's been doing his thing. I mean, he's not putting up monster yardage, but the yards that he is getting and the catches that he's making, they're very valuable in the game. They don't look like much in the stat sheet, but they're valuable. And now what we can do when Rashad Bateman comes back is insert him into that role. And I think what Bateman can do in that role, he'll sort of maximize it with. It's kind of like what we saw with J.K. Dobbins, where J.K. Dobbins wasn't getting all of the touches, but when he was touching the ball, we saw him maximize those opportunities. And I think with a guy like Bateman, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see someone who can not only be reliable, but also maximize those touches to his fullest potential. And with those other guys, with Duvernay and Prochet, they're gaining Lamar's trust right now in these big time games and big time spots where he's throwing at them for third down conversions. And you don't just you can't just simulate that in practice. That has to be a real in-game situation that you have to go through with someone. And we're seeing the two reliable guys who are tough as nails. They'll block for you. They'll do all the dirty work. So it's been fun to watch that come along as well. And then we got to mention Miles Boykin too. I know he gets a lot of flack, but he's been huge for the running game these last few years. He's been huge. So I'm not going to write him off just yet. I don't think he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver, but he does have a valuable role on this team and even on special teams.
One of the things I have to check when we watch this tape, Chris, this might disappoint you, but I believe Tylan Wallace came in that game before Boykin did. I believe after when the injuries happened and we went to 4 receiver sets, obviously Tylan Wallace wasn't targeted or anything, but yeah, I'm wondering if Boykin's going to get his chance. It looked like they used Josh Oliver. I like Boykin in the middle of the field. I think that's where he can use his catch radius, and he can find spots in zones. Boykin can do that really well. I think Boykin's being misused because, his stride's really long. And when you're asking him to shake an outside corner and have picture perfect timing, that wasn't something that he could do his first 2 years. But who knows, to your point with this new coaching and everything, maybe that's something he can evolve in. But I wanted to just point that out to you. I think Wallace was in that game.
He was. I don't have the snap count, but I did see him on a couple of run plays, and I think he was on one pass play. Just for going off of memory, but I did see him there, and you're not going to disappoint me with that because I don't know if you know, but I'm the president of the Tylan Wallace fan club.
Oh, okay. I also like Tylan Wallace a lot, man. And
yeah, that's my guy.
I mean, he stood out to me. A Senior Bowl, I think it was. I'm like, whoa, man! You got to see him one-on-one, and I love the Senior Bowl, just like the Ravens. The Ravens got me into it, and it's one of my favorite evaluation tools, Chris, because they all get dropped off at the same spot. They all get handed the same playbook, and you can really kind of separate the men from the boys, if you will, when it's just hey, hurry up and learn this, and we're gonna run it. Tylan Wallace was a machine, man. And by the way, both him and Boykin, killer gunners, bro, killer gunners. Yep. I mean, they're getting down there and forcing fair catches and nowhere to run. So, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. With Sammy, I guess we won't know until all of our receivers are fully healthy how they're going to handle this wide receiver rotation. I wanted to talk about the offensive line. I mentioned I thought that this was an off game for Bradley Bozeman. I'm going to have to go back and watch. But I wanted to talk about our tackles, Alejandro Villanueva and McCary. Now, these guys – this is what kind of my question to you. We've seen the pass rushers. Basically, they're not going to run past Lamar. They're going to get to where Lamar is and then double back. So part of the credit we have to admit is Lamar's. It's just to the threat of his leg. He's going to face those mush rushes or just stay in your lane rushes. But man, I saw Villanueva down there at the goal line. Some of these plays that took a long time to develop, absolutely putting the clamps on people. Same thing for McCary, man. So I'm pretty encouraged about what we've seen out of both of those guys in total, as far as, Villanueva's had his bad games, but moving forward, I'm kind of encouraged what I'm seeing out of these tackles. Can't wait for Ronnie to get back, though.
Yeah, 100%. And the way Villanueva's playing is it affords you that luxury to bring Ronnie along slowly. And when do you see teams able to just let their left tackle just sit, and it's like, all right, yeah, we got another guy who could play left tackle, and just it was been a smooth transition so far for him to play left tackle, and then Makari, he's been a revelation at right tackle, and I'm really happy to see because I told you I'm the president of the Tylan Wallace fan club. I was the president of the Patrick Makari at right tackle fan club in the summertime because just the way this guy moves, he's a tackle. He's not a guard. He can't hold up against those big guys. He moves and mirrors just like a tackle. Play him there. That's where he belongs, and he's showing it. He's doing his thing, and like you said, Lamar, he's always going to help out the offensive line as far as the mush rushes and guys not being able to pin their ears back because Lamar's not a statue, but they also have to play. These edge defenders they're going up against, they're not like, oh, it's just Lamar back there, we're not gonna give it our all. It's like, no, they're trying to go out there, and these guys have to put them on their ass, so to speak. So
Yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, yeah, Lamar is helping on a number of plays, but there comes down to plays where these guys are on an island. They're going to have to block, and they really came through against Indianapolis on those situations. There was just, it took Andrews, like I think fans will remember, it took Andrews a while to get open. Lamar holding the ball, looking, going through his reads, and on those plays, man, McCary and especially Villanueva looked really, really good. So I can't wait to get to the tape.
And also like on those plays, all we hear about is, they're going no huddle and the defense is tired. But it's like those damn offensive linemen are tired too. And for you to keep your integrity and keep your technique sound when you're tired in the fourth quarter or in overtime, that says a hell of a lot about their conditioning and their mental toughness where they can, battle it out and give Lamar that amount of time that late in the game going no huddle.
So what about, speaking about, endurance and lasting the season, Calais Campbell, like, I feel like we need Derek Wolfe to come back after this bye week, hopefully, because he's playing at such a high level, and we see what a crazy difference it makes him making these splash plays every game, man. Like, literally being the guy responsible for a play that could have been housed with our way our tackling's been, for being a tackle for loss because of Calais Campbell, the block kicks. I mean, he probably would have blocked another one. I saw Shannon Sharp comment on that. The one that Blankenship missed to the left, Calais did that swim move again and was in the lane, had his hand up. And Shannon said that basically maybe he kind of tried to steer it a little bit left because that one was going to get blocked. But, yeah, I mean, are we going to have to find ways to try to slow Calais down and manage his snap counts, or are you just going to let him play till the wheels fall off? How are you feeling about that?
See, I'm always part of the crew of trying to have a solid rotation, and I think the best example of that right now is the Buffalo Bills. The rotation they have is so even, and they are able to keep guys fresh throughout the game, and that's a place I wish the Ravens could be in. Unfortunately, they can't due to injury, due to not having the highly skilled guys is the way that the Bills do, because the Bills, they go deep on that line because they've invested so many first-round picks, so many second-round picks into just the defensive line alone. We haven't seen the Ravens do that, but it's not to say that the Ravens don't have a talented group, because they clearly do. But as far as the rotation, I wish they could do something in order to keep guys fresh throughout the game. But unless Wolf comes back, I mean, I'm not sure who we can trust.
Yeah, it's strange because one of the great things about being a Ravens fan is we've always been a heavily rotated team, both our outside linebackers, our interior. I mean, we still have Brandon Williams and Jelly in there rotating, but Calais Campbell and Broderick Washington, and that's pretty much it. So I mean, we're dealing with basically four guys that we trust, two of them being strictly nose tackles. So yeah, I'm really worried about Calais. He's just been playing so great. I don't want to see him get burned out. I want to see us pace ourselves and have the best Calais Campbell we can have towards the end of the season when we play Cleveland, and then of course, hopefully into the playoffs. Always just say hopefully, but I'm confident, still confident. So But yeah, any other players that you want to talk about and how they played in this game, or projecting forward? It's up to you, man.
Yeah, I want to go back on Hollywood, man, because he's just the way he's been playing outside of the Detroit game, and even in the Detroit game, it's like he was good enough to get open. He just didn't seal the deal with the catches, but even with that game, like you just see this guy going to a whole new level, and it's so fun to watch, especially because now he's wearing the number 5, and every time you see Lamar, you see Brown with him. Whether they're in the car, whether they're walking into the stadium, whether they're on the sideline, they're always together. And then, it's cheesy and corny, but it's good to see them kind of be like brothers in a way, and it's fun to watch them have the success that they're having.
Yeah, and there's a trust factor and a chemistry level factor, and it. Lamar and Andrews have had it since day one. Just kind of a funny thing, but on these broken plays, and then look at all the touchdowns Hollywood scoring. Wish I pulled this up beforehand, but it's crazy numbers. He's scoring in basically every game since the middle of last season, aside from a couple of games. Don't hold me to every game, but yeah, like the chemistry between him and Lamar when things break down. For a guy, again, a smaller guy, for him to have all these touchdowns, it just shows you anybody is a red zone threat on this team when you have Lamar Jackson. But the bond between Lamar and Hollywood, man, is just springing. Another guy I wanted to talk about was Desean Elliott, because I think he was sorely missed in this game. Brandon Stevens, I feel like he played well. It's just Desean has got this special skill, Chris, when it comes to seek and destroy and being a fine tackler, and that would have and having the instincts to do so too. And that you see Brandon Stevens as a rookie, it's taken him just he wants to make sure he's sure. When he gets there, he does well. But man, against these screen teams, and if they're going to keep using these running backs like Indy did, like Detroit did, we need Desean Elliott healthy. Desean, take your time if you need to. We're going to need you 100% eventually, man.
Yeah, and I kind of like what they did with him as far as keeping him out this game because he's had the concussion, he's had the quad injury, and it's still early in the season. So I think he got in some practices last week, and we know who's coming this week, and they're going to need him because that's a team that likes to run those screen games a ton. So I like that they kept him out in this game, and hopefully we'll see him against the Chargers.
That's great. And, the only other player I wanted to go back and talk about is Bozeman, because he has been so good and such a big piece of what we're seeing. And we're seeing Lamar be able to step up in the pocket and have some room to maneuver. And that's one of Lamar's strengths, Chris, is his manipulation of the pocket, I believe, is how most people refer to it. It's not like getting flushed out of the pocket and hitting people on the run. It's just those subtle slide over, sidearm stuff. Like a lot of those things aren't possible if you don't have a stout interior offensive lineman. So I expect Bozeman, Buckner's a tough match for anybody. I expect Bozeman to bounce back. And then I want to also mention Kevin Zeitler, who I think has just been a godsend. I think he helps McCary. I think he helps Bozeman. There's one play I might highlight this week once I get the game film where they're passing off a stunt flawlessly near the goal line, which I think was the game-winning touchdown pass in overtime. So I'm going to have to cut that up and show people. But, yeah, man, the right side of this line, man, can you just talk about how they perform not only in this game but throughout the season?
Yeah, like you said, for me, one of the most important things with the offensive line is continuity, and we're seeing it progress as the season goes along, especially with the right side of the line because we know left guard has just been a revolving door with Ben Powers. Well, it was Phillips, Ben Powers, Ben Cleveland. So it's been hard to stick to one guy on that side, but with Makari now at right tackle, Zeitler and Bozeman have been working together all summer long. So it's fun to see it come to life and really just take it to a level where we haven't seen since Marshall Yonda left. Because when Yonda was there, it was Orlando Brown Jr., it was Yonda, and it was Matt Skura. And that side was just solid. It was solidified. And now we haven't had that in a couple seasons here. So now we're seeing a side just It's not there yet. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying it's at that level, but we're seeing it at least be solidified in a way where Lamar's comfortable and Lamar isn't running for his life like we saw week 1.
So we're going to close, man. I'm going to give my thoughts first, just on the game. First of all, great game. Great time to be a Ravens fan. I mean, even if you're not a hardcore football fan, like I have friends, I'm sure we all have friends who just casually keep an eye on the Ravens. Maybe it's on TV, but they're not really watching it, or, don't go through the ups and downs. Like I have casual football fans who are like on the edge of their seats here watching, people I don't usually hear from. Did you see that game last night? Like, what a treat to be a Ravens fan, to see Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, Justin Tucker, just all the great performances. Hollywood, Mark Andrews salting it up downfield, man, like just a great team. And then, of course, when this defense is on and Wink splits in and we're just hitting people left and right, like what a great time to be a Ravens fan. And then the other thing I wanted to say is this game was epic, instant classic. It's going to be one of those games, Chris, where they start replaying it in the offseason when just random games on, and I'll probably see it on the TV, or somebody will tweet it out, hey, that Ravens versus Colts game's coming on, and I'm probably going to just put it on and at least have it on, even if I can't watch it, like just have it on in the background, man. What an awesome game, Chris, man. Like we are pretty damn lucky, aren't we?
Yeah, that's for damn sure. I mean, every game besides the Denver game has been, classic games, and it's not fun in the moment, but after when we talk about it, it's like, damn, that was fun. I'll go for the blowout any day over those kind of wins.
Yeah, I'll go for the blowout any day. But I will say that I do believe, like, we've seen and been on, I mean, and people watching this same thing, we've seen these kind of teams in every sport. Like a lot of baseball teams are like this, the comeback kids. They fall behind 5-0 in the 5th inning, but they keep scratching and clawing and find a way to win. Like these first 5 games for the Ravens, you cannot tell me as the amateur psychologist that I love to pretend to be, that this does not instill some kind of confidence in this game. No matter how bad things are going, we have a chance. We got number 8. Not only that, we got a coach that's got our back. We got a kicker. That's why I mentioned Tucker in there, a kicker that can make any kind of kick if we need to. We got big players on defense that can make big plays. This rookie Adafio Way we didn't talk about enough tonight, man. Like he had an off game, I think, in run defense, but I've seen him getting off the snap quicker and quicker every week, which is just a huge sign for his team. So, but yeah, could you please close by talking about your experience watching or playing on teams that seem to win in these crazy ways and how that affects them throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think adversity, as far as we see the 2019 season, the MVP season, and there wasn't a lot of adversity that year. So when the team was faced with it against the Titans, the look that everybody had was just like, what do we do? What's going on? Like we don't know what to do. And we kind of saw that creep its head in again during the Bills playoff game, where we saw guys that were down and they didn't know how to respond to it. But now in 2021, granted it's not the playoffs, but we see them down in big games, and we don't see their heads down. We don't see John Harbaugh on the sideline just like shaking his head with his head down. We're seeing a team that's confident, and it's like, oh, okay, we're down. All right, we're gonna come back. And this is what you heard in every post game was, we have Lamar. We're never down. We're never done. And we have full belief in him that we'll be able to get it done. So it's battle-tested teams are the ones that last and the ones that can overcome adversity when it hits, because in the NFL, you're going to find adversity one way or another. It's never going to be perfect. So unless you're the 72 Dolphins, that's the only way. But other than that, it's not going to be perfect. So it's been fun to watch this team mature as a whole, not just Lamar, but the whole team mature and be confident that they can come back, and no matter what the deficit is.
Yeah, I mean, so many great points in there. You said, well, these aren't, they're big games, even though people don't look at them as big games. And I'm going to back you up on that. You go ahead to Las Vegas and you lose. Imagine what happens if you come back and get beat again by KC. I mean, look at the way that game has changed, like not only for the Ravens, but also for the Chiefs. Or what if you come back from Detroit and get held to whatever it was, 16 points against that defense that's missing 2 starting cornerbacks? What is the mentality of the team? Where is everybody at in their heads? Or last night, like we were feeling in that first half, time for us to get in first place in our division, put a stamp on it. Nice Monday night game. Even I was on the channel saying, man, if we played well, all we got to do is tackle. These guys ain't got nothing for us, man. Like, I was feeling like, what in the hell is going on?
Man, you see, you get to record your takes. I don't have that embarrassment because I was telling people I know, I'm like, I think this is gonna be a blowout. I thought it was gonna be a blowout, man. And people, my boys who I said that to, they were like, "What happened, man? What happened? You didn't tell me the Colts were gonna blow them out."
Yeah, I'm like, all they got is Jonathan Taylor and Naeem Hines. I'm like, I can't see Wink not going into this game saying we're going to take these running backs away. We can do this. We're to tackle. We'll do whatever we want. Look, they don't, they've got Xavier Rhodes out there. Rock Ya-Sin's hurt. Isaiah Rodgers hasn't been good. Their safeties are kind of, but Julian Blackman, by the way, played a great game for them. Free safety.
Yeah, he was laying the wood.
Yeah, and that the goal line fumble by Lamar. Go back and watch that one, man. Not just you, but anybody. Julian Blackman kind of half took away, made great play. Half took away the running back, like you said. Lamar don't have the confidence to give it to the running back, so it don't take much for him to keep it himself. But baited Lamar into keeping it, and then had the athletic ability to spring on Lamar and force that play. But yeah, man, I did. I was the overconfident guy, more overconfident in the DMs and the texts and the calls that I've received. But I even said on the channel, I'm like, man, all they got on us is the running backs. We should dominate this team and score. And, man, I was wrong, but I'm so happy that we got this win. So, Chris, any kind of final thoughts? Are you ready to say goodbye to the people?
Yeah, man, I'm ready to say goodbye. Again, man, thanks for having me on. This is my second time on and second time after a crazy game. So I appreciate it, man.
I love you very much, Chris. Thank you for all you do for us, and thank you for coming on the program. Just say goodbye to my football family. All right, Chris, say goodbye to the people, man.
Peace.